Russell Brand is bringing his revolution to The View.
Oh, well played!
And the mysterious hero who used social media to help track down a gang of accused criminals reveals why he's not ready to reveal his true identity. With your hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Nicole Wallace, Rosie Perez, and Rosie O'Donnell. It all starts now on The View.
Hello, and welcome to The View, y'all. Welcome to The View. Before we begin, they let us know that Oscar Pistorius is waiting now imminently to be sentenced. As soon as we hear anything, we will let y'all know, because we know a lot of people want to know how this is going to roll out. But until then, what did y'all do over the weekend? Everybody looks very healthy and brisk and cute and just very rosy.
Well, we're feeling rosy.
Yes.
Yeah. You were working, right?
Yes, I was up in Maine.
Yes.
I was doing a movie. Well, I am doing a movie with the great Diane Weiss.
Who I love.
Yes, and David Oyelowo.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
And he said he was going to kill me if I murdered his name, and I just did. Sorry, Davey. But it's a movie about grief and about loss, and it was beautiful up there in Maine, and I sent you guys that video.
Incredible.
Yeah, and I go back next weekend, and the people of Maine were lovely. I loved you guys there. It was beautiful.
It's
Pittsburgh,
gorgeous
Maine.
place.
Yeah, beautiful.
And what did you
place.
do, baby?
I did what I always do. I took my 15-year-old to a movie. For the last, for 15 years.
Right.
We've been seeing the first movie every Saturday or Sunday morning.
Right.
And no matter what, and there he is, Blakey, he's my movie buff, and he always chooses, and he chose The Judge.
Nice
which
choice.
I thought was interesting,
Yeah.
right? Because I thought he was going to choose The Expendables, which I wasn't as excited to see. But this was a beautiful film, The Judge, and Robert Downey Jr. never been better in his life. So stunning, and what a great actor. And to see Robert Duvall playing his age, playing a man in the final stages of his life, going through chemo, having, to vomit and
all kinds of stuff.
And the son take care of him. Like my son finally elbowed me, and I'm like, what? He's like, you were squeezing my hand.
Yes.
Because there's this beautifully touching scene where the son helps the father, and I was okay. And when that happened, I reached over to Blakey, and he said I was squeezing his hands. I didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
It was just so emotionally, but a beautiful film. Go see it.
Yeah, it's
That's
fantastic.
all I did.
What'd you do over the weekend?
Well, I caught up on Homeland. I'm obsessed with Homeland. And and I'm struggling because I love Carrie. I love her character, and I feel like if she were a guy, if she were a man, I wouldn't feel judgmental that she has this tiny baby, and she left the baby. She's stationed in Afghanistan at the beginning, and that's a hardship post. You can't take your children or any dependents there. But I felt myself feeling so judgy, and I was like, bad mommy, don't be judgy. But I was wrestling, and I've written 2 books about a female president. I'm obsessed with this topic of whether there's a double standard, and I felt myself applying one to Carrie. So even though she's a little off the rails this year, I mean, she's a, can we say the ASS word? She's a bad ASS.
Oh, I see, yes.
And the best.
And she's bipolar.
And she's bipolar.
Right.
But that doesn't affect her brilliance, it doesn't seem, in the
Well,
field.
it did affect her in the bathtub tub scene with the baby.
Yes, and this is where I was so upset. Okay, so it's okay that I felt like a judge.
Are you kidding me?
She's got a tiny baby, and she's so unstable, she almost drowned the baby. And I'm like, take the baby!
That is not judgment, honey. That's sanity. That's not judgment.
Thank you. I feel so much better. See, Republicans feel judgy.
Really?
Yeah, we do.
I'm sorry. I didn't know. You should have called me. I was screaming at the TV, get that baby away from her!
Why wasn't anyone home, too? She's not that stable, and no one's home all day.
The sister was home.
Where was the nanny? Oh, see, I'm sweating.
There's no nanny.
Where was the nanny?
They don't have enough money to have a nanny.
Yes, they have a nanny.
They don't have a nanny.
I was like, where's the nanny?
It's her sister. It's not a nanny. Her sister's over there.
Also a nanny.
And I think from now on, we're going to bring you updates of everything because this was too much fun to watch. This was too much fun to watch. So let's get into it because some crazy stuff has been going on. Well, it is this is the real world.
I know.
These are things, and things make you feel stuff, and it's a great thing to hear. You don't hear a lot of people say, man, that really bothered me. People see stuff and they never talk. We get to do it. So
I just want to go out on a limb and say I'm against drowning babies in a bathtub.
Me too. Me too.
Don't write to me.
Don't tweet me.
Don't tweet, don't email, because they really don't want to hear from you about this. Okay? But this is crazy. The nurse who cared for Eric Thomas Duncan is now the first confirmed case of Ebola transmitted on U.S. soil. And the health department has issued mandatory quarantine for NBC's Dr. Nancy Schneiderman after she was spotted outside a restaurant in her New Jersey neighborhood. Her cameraman that she was in Africa with has Ebola right now. And so they were quarantined. And, you know, should she have been at a restaurant trying to eat something? I mean, it's crazy. People want to know, how is it possible you put all the stuff on and you got everything, and you were the nurse, and how did this happen? How did you get it?
I want to say a few things. First of all, I thought it's irresponsible. I love the CDC, but it's irresponsible for them to state that there must have been something wrong during protocol. Because unless they know that, you shouldn't speculate and put it out there to the public. Everyone is so terrified of getting Ebola that just, I think, put even more fear with the public.
Question
yes, and making it, because maybe there was a lax in protocol, but we don't know that.
No.
And I think that until they found out what exactly happened, I don't think that they should have made that statement.
You know what? I think it's interesting that they decided to say that they must have had a lapse in the protocol. Perhaps what people were using was old, because you know sometimes if you've had those gloves around, they kind of wear away, and you put them on and you get a little tiny hole, you don't know.
Right.
So I think all of these hospitals have to sort of look at the stuff that they're going to be putting on people and make sure that they are the newest, that it hasn't been there for 5 years and maybe it's old and fallen apart, because it's kind of crazy. I don't think it was them. I think if they did everything they were supposed to do, they might want to look at what the stuff they're using.
And also a nurse said on NPR, they interviewed a nurse, and she said that she finds it very offensive that they're blaming nurses.
Yes.
And because if the nurse did something wrong, then the fault should also lie on the people that taught them how to do it.
For sure. And you know, what I read this weekend for the first time is that they're saying they're training hospitals. All that you have to do to check that box that you've trained a hospital is sometimes post a flyer on a bulletin board. That is not training in my mind. That's covering your ass. Like, I use that word again.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And she's the conservative one.
But it's a lot of people protecting themselves from liability and responsibility instead of actually, I mean, nurses are on the front lines for all of us, not just Ebola, for everything. So I'm uncomfortable with them.
Ask you a question, because this has been on my mind, and I wanted to ask you last week. Don't you think, because they're doing all these screenings, don't you think maybe they should be screening people before they leave Africa to come? Shouldn't there be screeners? I mean, I didn't want to. Because they keep showing this map of where they're screening people. I noticed they're not screening anybody in L.A. I think that's weird. Because what if you have families,
really, right?
But
I mean,
what
those
if you
people
have
live in a bubble
in L.A.? Shouldn't you be screening? I mean, if you're African and you're going to L.A., don't you want them to screen you? I mean, I want you to be screened everywhere, but I think if you're screened before you get on the plane, it might be easy to catch. You know, not get, but say, oh, you got a fever, don't get on.
You know, there's all kinds of speculation that if they start screening people, let's say in Liberia, that the entire country will be dead. If we prevent people from leaving Liberia or coming into Liberia, right, that's one of the hot spots in West Africa. And there was a wonderful cartoonist who did an illustration recently about the crisis of Ebola, that there were 3,000 dead people before it really became very prominent news. And if you see the cartoonist, all of the dead African bodies and the one dead American, and all the camera crews are around that. I thought it was profound and accurate, and I think that we should think more globally than we do as a nation.
Because Ebola doesn't care. See, Ebola doesn't care where you're from. It doesn't care. French, Italian, Greek, You know, it's, you know, come on now. Y'all said to trust you. I'm just saying, you might want to tighten up how you're doing this, because I don't want it.
And it's all about, we keep reiterating the point, it's about being responsible. And I want to talk about responsibility when it comes to Dr. Nancy Snyderman.
Yes.
Yes, because...
You want to do it when we come back?
Yes. Okay.
Yes. We'll be right back with more Hot Topics. Hey! Welcome back. Yeah, I said it. You were just about to talk about Dr. Nancy, because that's kind of freaky.
Snyderman, it's freaky.
Remind people what we just...
Well, we were talking about Ebola,
right,
and she broke the quarantine.
She's NBC's on-air doctor and a doctor in real life.
Yes, and they issued a quarantine for her to stay in her house,
right,
as a precaution,
right,
and she went to go get food at a drive-thru. At a drive-thru, people, at a drive-thru. And I just thought that that was so irresponsible. Listen, whether she knows she's infected or not, you know, you just don't do that. You don't put fear into the public when you're a public figure. You just don't do that. I had issues with Giuliani, you know, but one thing I had to give him, during 9/11, he acted like a stand-up guy as a true mayor and stood there. He squashed the fear. He squashed the fear. It's like, yes, we were under attack, but we are going to handle it, and we need to have the city be calm.
It's pretty dumb. I'm sorry, Dr. Nancy. It's pretty dumb.
It's
a dumb move.
It is, but NBC is saying that she was a low-risk person, and
that's not the issue, whether she's low risk or not. If you are quarantined and you're a public figure,
and you're a doctor,
imagine the person at the drive-thru. You're like, oh.
She was in a parking lot for a restaurant, but yes, people saw her.
If we're saying that you don't want to be around people who are symptomatic because you can get it,
right?
Her cameraman was symptomatic when she met him.
Right.
That's why they brought them back. She wasn't. But if you're saying if you're around someone who is showing the symptoms, you want to be quarantined. That's the deal.
Right. Yeah.
So you had no business. You know, that's why they make a telephone. Maybe, Nancy, you don't know that. But I'm going to hit you. Because there's a device, right?
Yeah.
There's a device you can call and say, hey, could you deliver?
Yeah.
You know, they do that in this country. They will deliver food for you. What the hell, Nancy?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
But there's more. Not to this. But also maybe crazy, a lot of parents who use e-tablets and e-readers for story time with their kids. You know, a lot of parents do that. But the American Academy of Pediatrics is saying that that's not really a great thing. That's no different than watching TV when you actually, or when you're reading a book. When you're reading a book, it's very different. Do you use devices to read to your kids?
No, never. No. I don't think it counts, do you?
No.
That is tablet time.
No, and when they do, you know, when she plays, the baby who's almost 2 plays with the iPad, you know, she goes to the baby apps and, like, touches the duck and it says quack. And, but when it's time to read the book, you sit down, you have a routine, they're on your lap, there's contact. Oh, where's the bird? There's the bird, right? I think it's a vital part of communication and bonding between parents and children, so.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I also think we don't know yet what effects staring at that screen is going to have on our babies. Our babies are part of the guinea pig generation, right? We don't exactly know if they're going to have a harder time reading physical books.
That I have huge issues reading with the e-reader because the light is bad. It's very, very, very bad for me, and I'm grown.
Right. You know, well, studies have shown that from birth till 5 years old, interaction with your child is vital.
Oh, you got to have eye contact.
And the eye contact. You know, tactile interaction is crucial, and having the computer do all the work for you, for your child, is not good.
Well, you know, the other thing is you have to, the way that they learn to speak.
Right.
You know, when the reason they tell you to talk to your baby is because that's how they learn to talk.
Right, right.
You know? Talking and singing is key to
really important. And even if you know, it's important that you're not the
No,
never.
you don't want that.
No, it's terrible. No baby ever does that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Then we're going to have all these kids growing up sounding like Siri.
That'd be scary.
That is very scary. Now, when we come back, we have to tell you about a very peculiar story that may affect you at some point. We'll be right back with more Hot Topics.
I didn't see that coming. Russell Brand reveals how he's branching out into children's books.
Now there's a really weird atmosphere.
The View TV.
Columbus Day to our friends, the Italians out there. It's Columbus Day. There are a lot of teachers here. That's great. They are. How about this? Talking about school, you know, the high school football hazing scandal in Sayreville, New Jersey is putting a national spotlight on violence in sports. 7 team members have been arrested on sexual assault and hazing charges, and the football season has been canceled. But some parents say it's wrong to punish the entire team for the actions of a few. But if you're a team, you either go up as a team or you go down as a team. That's what I was always taught.
Yes, indeed.
That's the saying.
I agree. I mean, some of the allegations are horrific.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad that the school district decided to do something. I'm glad they canceled the football team. I think it's the right thing to do.
And we're the adults. Do you want to talk about what the allegations are, or can we say that on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, basically what would happen is back in the locker room, the seniors would promote a howling call.
Right.
Lights would be shut off, be pitch black, and they would pin a football player down and penetrate them with their fingers. It was just horrific.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was really horrific and terrible.
And so I mean, if you're a team and you know this is going on...
These are the allegations.
These are the allegations.
No, but this is what I'm saying. If you are on the team and you know this is going on and you don't stop it, then you go down with everybody else.
And that's, and that's the message. And that's the message that they've sent. That's the message that... You know, that's the difference between saving a life or maybe sparing a kid from you know, feeling alone. That's the message that you hope everyone that feels like an innocent victim.
Not only feeling alone, but from being raped in a locker room, right?
And where are the coaches?
But even if you weren't,
that's what I'm saying. We're the grown folks.
Well, I think your role as a student is to speak up for the people who can't. And I mean, if that is the lesson the school is trying to teach, then I support them 100%.
And we do know that everybody is innocent until proven guilty. We all know that. But I think what we're saying is, if that's the case, there are people who should be answering this, adults, other students, other players. If you know, you can't let that happen.
Do you know, I have a school for kids here in New York, and it goes from 5th grade all the way up to 12th. And the kids get jackets that say Rosie's Theater Kids School. And if you are caught in the jacket doing anything inappropriate, and they call the school, you're asked to leave the school. There was a kid on the subway who was being rude, and 3 or 4 people called, and we talked to the kid and said, you know, listen, you can't go around wearing our jacket, acting like this. So give in your jacket, and you got to do it.
But there are great stories out there, and we're going to bring you this one because this warmed everybody's heart and made us wonder, could we do the same? A California woman named Susan Mellon was just released from prison after serving 17 years for a murder she did not commit. And the way she's handling herself in the wake of all of this is kind of amazing. Take a look.
It hasn't hit me yet. I haven't had my breakdown yet either. I keep crying and then it stops. I told the judge the day I got sentenced, I said that one day God would bring the truth to the light. I always knew that I would get my justice and I would be, God would reverse my destiny, and that I'm not to do a death sentence. I'm to come home and be with my family. Oh, my grandson! He knows me already. Hi.
I mean, grace. And there before the grace of God.
Hello, my darling Rosie.
How are you?
Today I feel very well and very optimistic and very happy to be in this situation, this precise one.
Yes?
Me too. I'm happy that you're here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hello.
I'm nervous. I'm the one that doesn't know any famous people, so, you know. This is
now
new
you
for
do.
me. Now I do.
Look at all these people. And now, aren't they lovely? All here to be entertained.
Yeah, OK. Well, I'm ready to do my very best to entertain these people in whatever medium you prefer, using everything at my disposal.
Great. Wow. I, along with millions of others, saw you on your Messiah Complex tour. It was fantastic.
Hilarious.
Hilarious.
Thank you.
You say we need to choose our idols, or our idols will be chosen for us.
Oh, yeah, that was a good slogan, wasn't it? Like, you know, like, the stuff like, we end up worshipping things inadvertently and accidentally, end up caring too much about, you know, iPod, iPad, I want, and forgetting what's really important. Me.
You know, you said that you knew you were going to be famous, right? That's what I read in the book, that you knew you were going to be famous, right, but you were afraid that it was going to have a traumatic effect. Is that, am I misquoting?
What I think it was, is I was an only child, I was an insecure little fella, and I thought that if I didn't become famous, there was no way that I was going to feel any sense of connection or happiness. I was a nervous little lad. I'm very grateful that I did become famous, because otherwise I don't think I'd have ever had the confidence to talk to anyone, let alone someone with dimples like those, for God's sake.
And you're very well-rounded. I mean, you were voted, and I'm not sure who votes. I guess that's the secret part of this whole thing, but you were voted Shagger of the Year.
Yes, one of my proudest accolades. Back in my country, Britain, the country of Shakespeare and Milton, is that I am the Shagger of some years.
Give it up, guys. I mean, that can't be easy.
That means you're doing the shagging.
Yeah, you have to do the shagging, Rosie.
To do the shag, but not the
Otherwise...
shaggy.
No. I don't know. I mean, I think as long as you're involved in the shag... I mean, to be honest, the adjudication process is quite loose. No one was looking. No one turned up during the shag and said, well, that looks technically inept.
So you weren't... But it's not just about the shag, right? I mean, you're looking for love, I hear.
I think everyone ultimately is looking for love. In fact, whatever it is we might think that we're looking for, perhaps behind it is love. We might think that we want our football team to win. We might think that we want a new pair of sexy trainers. We might think, in fact, that we want to snog you in spite of your political views. But behind all of that, behind all of those desires, really is a yearning for connection and love.
Yes.
Probably, is there? I don't know. I'm just trying to work it out.
Yeah, I think
Probably
you're on
that, isn't it?
It's probably that, yeah. She's laughing at you. Or me, I don't know.
No, both. I was wondering, Russell, if you have decided if you want to sponsor people, because I know that one of the things that I love about you is that you have recovered and are staying on a pretty even path, but I wonder if you're prepared to sponsor other people on the same path.
Do you mean with regard to drug and alcohol addiction?
Drug and alcohol, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, part of my daily recovery, one day at a time, from drugs and alcohol is that I have to be available to help anybody at all that has a drug or alcohol problem. It's really annoying, in fact. If anyone at all with a drug or alcohol problem says, Russell, I want to get clean, I have to help them. It's like a mandatory obligation. And sometimes I sort of want to go, no, I have to.
Yeah, you have to. And it's been like 11 years for you, right? Oh, sorry, honey, over 11 years, right?
It is over 11 years, though, since I've had any drugs.
You write about homeless vets in your book. I know we're going to get to talk about that more.
Not veterinarians, because like, how would you ever help a dog or cat if you lived in an alleyway?
Right. It would be, well, in some ways, easier.
Like army vets.
Right, army vets. But, and you took a homeless person into your flat, so I think this... I think it's easier for you than you make it say yes to people.
Sometimes people are stigmatised because of something like homelessness, but I know loads of people that are homeless and they're exactly the same as me, except for a roof.
And you talk to them, and you don't have any of that sort of barrier that I think other people... Some people step over them. You write a lot about how you don't do that.
I think it's important to try to acknowledge that we are ultimately unified by our common humanity, not divided by significant distinction.
I think that's nice.
Yeah.
Although it doesn't always work out well, I once gave a homeless man a phone and said, stay in touch with me and report back to me, so I remain grateful for having a home and everything, and he sent me a photograph of his genitals. Was clever. Said, you can't change a system using the thinking that created it. That means if you want to change things, you have to look at alternative ways of thinking. The way things are at the moment, the people that benefit from it don't want it to change. They are happy with it the way it is. That's why things like ecological disaster, economic inequality, global meltdown and war are largely ignored, because they are serving the purpose of the people that are in control. If you want change to come, it will not come from them.
And Russell, one of your favorite Solzhenitsyn quotes, I think, is very apt, that you've been using lately a lot.
Oh, yeah, all right. This must be the first Solzhenitsyn quote on The View, surely. Solzhenitsyn was a Russian dissident and author. He goes, "The line between good and evil does not come between nations, religions, races or creeds, but runs through every human heart." Meaning we all have the capacity to be a bit selfish and egotistical. I know I do. So I just try and tend towards the best part of myself, and then everyone else tries to do it, and then we create a more positive environment. Or, as Rocky IV said, if I can change and you can change, maybe the whole...
Can I ask you about your... I saw some of the interviews you've done on the book, and you have an insistence that this revolution cannot and will not come about through voting. But there's not a revolution that I can think of that without violence has brought about change. So you take out violence, because that's
yes, violence is obviously bad. That would not, you can't achieve anything through violence.
And you take out voting. So how are these changes going to happen without voting, without violence?
Well, the only reason I disagree with voting is because, for me, the political system in my country, there are two parties, but both the parties are really similar to one another, and it seems that they're more interested in representing big business than the ordinary people of my country. I wonder if it's the same here.
It is very similar.
It is, but, you know, I think in this country, when people hear you say that, you know, they get nervous because people of color fought so hard for the right to vote.
Yes, and women fought very hard to vote.
Yes.
And the reason people fought so hard to vote is because they wanted their views represented. They wanted to be free. Now we've ended up with a government that doesn't represent us in a lot of countries. Your own Thomas Jefferson said every generation should have a revolution, and I think we need one now. You know, when your country was ruled by an economic elite that taxed you without representing you, you kicked them out. It was us, the English.
Right.
And now you're in a similar situation where an economic elite who doesn't represent you, is not interested in your values or your views, only wants to represent rich elites and corporations. You similarly have this situation, only now it's not divided by an ocean, only an ocean of money, a green sea of inequality.
Thomas Jefferson also said that revolution comes about when people are willing to bleed for their cause. So what are you willing to bleed for your cause? Are you willing to change your life around? If someone came to you and gave you $100 million to make these changes, I saw you pressed in an interview, and I know you got a little cross, and I hope you get cross with me. But
I didn't think you got cross at all. I thought it was brilliant. And it's had 11 million views. 11 million views, his interview with Paxson over in England.
I thought you got a little cross and testy when pressed to get... I think you have an opportunity to get specific. I think you have an opportunity to ask people to do something, and you haven't gotten specific.
I have, actually. That's what this book is.
I read the whole book. I read the whole thing.
Yes, yes, it is. Organise your own workplaces. Organise the places where you live. If you're unhappy with the amount of money you're paying for your rent or your mortgage, ask other people if they feel similar to you. Organise. You won't be represented at a political level.
But don't vote.
Well, unless a party emerges that says, hello, we're here for ordinary American people. We're not going to accept money from lobbyists in Washington. We're not going to represent big corporations, pharmaceuticals, Monsanto. We're interested in representing you, ordinary people. If a party like that comes into being, by God, vote for them. But there is not a party like that in America. There's not a party like that in the United Kingdom, and the reason is because we live under tyranny.
Well, no, there was a party. There was a party. It was Ralph Nader. Ralph Nader in our country did represent those values, and what had happened is that the people didn't come out to support him. And a lot of times here in America, we vote against our own self-interest.
Why do we do that? It's almost like the media feeds us narratives where we oppress immigrants, people that are vulnerable, people with disability, people that are different colours from the majority of the population. These people are constantly blamed for social problems. I'm a recovering drug addict. We are constantly criminalised and imprisoned, and in a way it's like people are always looking for scapegoats, people to condemn and blame, instead of, if you're looking for where to get more money to create a better society, look at the people that have got all of the money. That's where the problem is.
And isn't it true that, you know, your frustration with the news has led you to create your own version of the news on your YouTube channel called The Trues?
Oh, yeah, I do a true news channel called The Trues. It's true news, news that you can trust, where we report on how the news should be told. And when on Fox News, when they're telling you to condemn Mexican people or immigrants or people that have a different sexual identity to you, that's to distract you from the people that really have the power. People like...
Update you on a story that has fascinated us for a couple of weeks now. It's about a crime that might have gone unsolved until one man used the internet to mobilize people to take action. Take a look at this story. It was an assault on a gay couple in Center City, Philadelphia, a crime without leads, so police released a surveillance video hoping someone would help lead them to the perpetrators. And that's when tech-savvy Good Samaritans took action. A Twitter user called FanSince09 started a conversation about the crime, including a link to the surveillance video. Then, a photo posted, allegedly showing the people from the video at a restaurant earlier that night. FanSince09 used Facebook's check-in feature to figure out who had been at that restaurant. He matched profile photos with people in the surveillance video, then called the police. 3 suspects were identified and charged, all because one person was moved to mobilize social media at the intersection of technology and basic human decency, a unique moment of heroism. We are here with FanSince09, the man who was instrumental in catching these 3 alleged attackers. They have pled not guilty, and he's asked us to conceal his identity. And why is it you want to remain anonymous?
Well, from the beginning, I've been doing this account for a while. It's really a sports humor account. That's what it started as, and it's always been anonymous. It's always kind of been a character. So I don't want to, I just like doing it. I don't want this to kind of jeopardize that. This is something cool that happened, but let's keep the anonymity rolling.
I totally get that. So how did you hear about it? You were just online?
Well, it was a story in Philadelphia, and I just found out about the surveillance video. And when I saw that surveillance video, I said, you know what? I have 5,000 people followed me at the time. These people were in my demographic. They're in their 20s. I figured somebody knows somebody, so I felt, yeah, we could probably put a dent in this. So that's why.
Was there anything specifically about the crime?
Well, it just was such a horrific crime. I mean, I don't view Philadelphia, despite our reputation, it's a very progressive city, and I was really shocked to see something like this happen. So, normally I would be, talking about how we beat the Giants last night, but this was something that was really horrific to me, so we had to do something.
And when you started, did you think to yourself, I have the kind of connections online that would allow us to do this?
Yeah, absolutely. Between me, I had a bunch of people retweet it, including a friend of mine who's a Pro Bowl offensive guard for the Eagles, Evan Mathis. He sent it out there. He had 60-some thousand. So we got this in front of about 100,000 eyes, and I figured the 15 people we're looking for, somebody was going to recognize somebody and know somebody. So, that's why I realized we could help, and it took us about 2 hours.
It took you 2 hours?
Well, I did maybe about 45 minutes worth of work, but crowdsourcing, we got at least 3 people identified within 2 hours.
And there's a program that you used on Facebook to see who checked in. What is that?
It's really basic Facebook graph search. You can just type in people who checked in at. Once the picture was tweeted by Greg Bennett of the restaurant, we all recognized it, and I just went to that restaurant's page and looked at people who checked in. I kind of found a trail from they had friends that had checked in, clicking on there, kind of going through their photo history, who they know, was able to match up stuff, was able to match up the photos from that.
Listen, I think it's really amazing. I really do. When I heard this story, I thought, so many of us say online and we do nothing.
Right.
We go and look at cute puppies. And you took 2 hours and really changed the lives of these. And that's when tech-savvy Good Samaritans took action. A Twitter user called FanSince09 started a conversation about the crime, including a link to the surveillance video. Then, a photo posted, allegedly showing the people from the video at a restaurant earlier that night. FanSince09 used Facebook's check-in feature to figure out who had been at that restaurant. He matched profile photos with people in the surveillance video, then called the police. 3 suspects were identified and charged, all because one person was moved to mobilize social media at the intersection of technology and basic human decency, a unique moment of heroism. We are here with FanSince09, the man who was instrumental in catching these 3 alleged attackers. They have pled not guilty, and he's asked us to conceal his identity. And why is it you want to remain anonymous?
Well, from the beginning, I've been doing this account for a while. It's really a sports humor account. That's what it started as, and it's always been anonymous. It's always kind of been a character. So I don't want to, I just like doing it. I don't want this to kind of jeopardize that. This is something cool that happened, but let's keep the anonymity rolling.
I totally get that. So how did you hear about it? You were just online?
Well, it was a story in Philadelphia, and I just found out about the surveillance video. And when I saw that surveillance video, I said, you know what? I have 5,000 people followed me at the time. These people were in my demographic. They're in their 20s. I figured somebody knows somebody, so I felt, yeah, we could probably put a dent in this. So that's why.
Was there anything specifically about the crime?
Well, it just was such a horrific crime. I mean, I don't view Philadelphia, despite our reputation, it's a very progressive city, and I was really shocked to see something like this happen. So, you know, normally I would be, you know, talking about how we beat the Giants last night, but this was something that was really horrific to me, so we had to do something.
And when you started, did you think to yourself, I have the kind of connections online that would allow us to do this?
Yeah, absolutely. Between me, I had a bunch of people retweet it, including a friend of mine who's a Pro Bowl offensive guard for the Eagles, Evan Mathis. He sent it out there. He had 60-some thousand. So we got this in front of about 100,000 eyes, and I figured the 15 people we're looking for, somebody was going to recognize somebody and know somebody. So, you know, that's why I realized we could help, and it took us about 2 hours.
It took you 2 hours?
Well, I did maybe about 45 minutes worth of work, but crowdsourcing, we got at least 3 people identified within 2 hours.
And there's a program that you used on Facebook to see who checked in. What is that?
It's really basic Facebook graph search. You can just type in people who checked in at. Once the picture was tweeted by Greg Bennett of the restaurant, we all recognized it. And I just went to that restaurant's page and looked at people who checked in. I kind of found a trail from, they had friends that had checked in, clicking on there, kind of going through their photo history, who they know, was able to match up stuff, was able to match up the photos from that.
Listen, I think it's really amazing. I really do. When I heard this story, I thought, you know, so many of us say online and we do nothing.
Right.
We go and look at cute puppies. And you took 2 hours and really changed the lives of these